You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We begin with quite a bit of breaking news. The updates are flying in, so these might have to be updated later in the show. So if there's something right off the bat, you say, hey, wait a minute, that's a little out of date. If you're watching this later on the live stream, for example, hang with us for a second. The first of these from the Associated Press, who is in quite a bit of hot water regarding some of their reporting on other shootings involving Immigration Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol. They are now reporting that 2 federal officers fired shots during the encounter that killed Alex Pretti. That is according to a Department of Homeland Security notice to Congress, which was then sent by someone in Congress over to the Associated Press. Now, the Associated Press article does not name the officers. It says that a Border Patrol officer and a CBP officer each fired Glock pistols. So we still don't have any kind of clarification as to whether or not the SIG P320 that was carried by Pretti was fired or discharged. Again, that particular SIG known for discharging it perhaps in opportune times. Now, we're going to get into that a little bit more. Hang on. There are also all of the rumors flying around the country that the Trump administration is reducing Immigration Customs Enforcement, is reducing Border Patrol, is essentially pulling out of Minneapolis in defeat for his administration. According to an email from Joshua Andrew Post, the acting assistant chief of USBP, quote, "Good afternoon. There has been a lot of rumors regarding the status of Operation Metro Surge today. As of the latest report, Metro Surge is in a steady state and expected to continue as planned." This brings us to the weird relationship and conversations that were had today between President Trump and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, between Tom Homan and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, Tom Homan and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Supposedly, they had this big series of conversations in which they hashed out a lot of things that were frustrating all of the parties after the 2 deaths of individuals obstructing law enforcement. Now we are reaching a point where maybe, perhaps, we shift some direction slightly. At least that's the question being kind of asked out into the open as the individuals met. So up first was a statement by the border czar, being his title, Tom Homan. And I'm going to throw that particular post up on the screen. That gray there's a camera whose breaker has decided to flip. So we'll click that on real quick here. He said, "Today I met with Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and top law enforcement officials to discuss the issues on the ground in Minnesota. We all agree that we need to support our law enforcement officers and get criminals off of the streets. While we don't agree on everything, these meetings were a productive starting point, and I look forward to more conversations with key stakeholders in the days ahead. President Trump has been clear. He wants American cities to be safe and secure for law-abiding residents, and they will be." That's the statement from Tom Homan. Straight to the point, no futzing around. That was at 6:25 p.m., just over a half an hour before we went to air. Then a series of statements from Mayor Jacob Frey. Now, Mayor Jacob Frey gets out there and says, "Today, I met with Chief O'Hara and I met with Border Czar Tom Homan and had a productive conversation. I reiterated that my main ask is for proper Operation Metro Surge to end as quickly as possible." Again, according to an email from an assistant Border Patrol chief, doesn't look too accurate at the moment. He said, "Public safety works best when it's built on community trust, not tactics that create fear or division." Man, someone should have talked to this guy in 2020. He said, and this was at 3 p.m. this afternoon, "I also made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws, and that we remain focused on keeping our neighbors and streets safe." Now, that's a problem. That's a problem. He says he's going to continue to be in conversation with Homan. That's a significant issue. Number one, because he's essentially openly admitting in the conspiracy to obstruct federal law enforcement by saying, look, we've ordered, no one is going to work with federal law enforcement to uphold federal law of any kind. That's not allowed. You can't do that. If you are a law enforcement official in this country, according to the Supremacy Clause, you are just as required, if you see someone in front of you violating federal law, to stop them from violating federal law. There's no situation in which a sheriff in Louisiana can watch you violate federal law and go, you just go on about your business, just keep on doing it. That's not a thing. You don't have the option to choose which federal laws you do and do not want to uphold. And then, of course, we get to Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. He announced that he also had a productive call with President Trump. This is yesterday, said earlier today. I told him we need impartial investigations of the Minneapolis shootings involving federal agents, and that we need to reduce the number of federal agents in Minnesota. And he said the president agreed to look into everything. That tweet went out, and then all hell broke loose. And the reason all hell broke loose is because there were a number of individuals in Minneapolis that were very, very upset at the idea that Tim Walz wouldn't Fort Sumter President Trump. So you had a lot of people outside of Governor Tim Walz's office today that were just yelling essentially a convoluted version of no justice, no peace. So helpful, I'm sure. Yeah, that'll really fix things. Then President Trump got on Will Cain today on Fox News and made a statement regarding his conversations and updates around the situation with Tim Walz, Jacob Frey, and then, of course, the investigation.
Conversation with Governor Tim Walz. This man has suggested that this is a modern-day Gettysburg. He has likened his situation to Anne Frank in the Holocaust. He has said that ICE is your Gestapo army. And then you guys speak on the phone. I'm fascinated by that conversation.
It couldn't have been a nicer conversation. And in fact, I said to my people, I said, it's hard to believe that's the same guy I watch on television, or I watch in a debate not doing so well, or...
Keep that in mind. That political theater is going to become very important here in a couple of seconds that the president is referencing. Because he was accused, after the president made this statement, of being a liar, that Tim Walz is the same absolutely everywhere. No.
Because we had a very reasonable conversation, very good conversation. If you believe the conversation, he'd like to get this thing over with. But think of it, in the whole country, we've done this so much. We have the crime down to a level that nobody ever, I campaigned a little bit on crime, a lot on the border. The problem is I gave you the best border in the history of our country. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore. I did it a long time ago. I was able.
Now, he's not wrong there. He did give a year after sealing the border for individuals in local and state governments to participate in the upholding of federal law enforcement. The rules of this country is that even if you don't like someone in your state that gets elected to the office of governor, they're still your governor. Even if you don't like someone who is your congressperson, that's not who you voted for, not just in the general, but in the primary, that's still your congressperson. And the same with the president of the United States. The contract that you agree to as a citizen of the United States is that you agree to uphold and participate in the structures that are framed around the nation you are a citizen of. It's one of the reasons that dual citizenships are a very, very bad idea. But I digress. That brings us to Tim Walz. So Tim Walz had originally got out and made statements. Oh, yeah, we're cooling down. Oh, we're calming down. Oh, everything is going to be a lot relaxed. Oh, it's going to be much more interesting. Then Tim Walz gets on with Tim Miller over at The Bulwark, whose entire career is just around mediocrity and gaslighting. Either Tim Walz or Tim Miller would fit in there for that particular description. And he instead gets out the tough guy routine. Starts off okay enough. Here's Tim Walz today.
Good to be with you, Tim, and thanks for all the coverage of this. We're really, we're appreciative folks are out there. Look, I don't know how to describe it other than an assault. I've never witnessed anything like this. And I think as good as the reporting has been, it doesn't touch just every little issue in our children watching people get drugged. I mean, everyone here has a trauma.
Are children watching people get drugged? Perplexing.
Response, just pretty overwhelming. But I have to say, what you witnessed is what massive organized nonviolent resistance did. To be very clear, there's a change in tone, and we'll see. I'm going to meet here later today with Tom Homan. I understand Greg Bovino is gone, and that's a good riddance one. But it doesn't change the fact that the posture is still the same, that this is a unorganized, untrained, dangerous force on the streets that has nothing to do with either immigration or law enforcement. So I'll tell you today is there's a bit of optimism, but there's such a sense of resolve. And I would say this is the Minnesota kind of attitude. A lot of
wrap it up, bud.
folks think winter's over in March. Minnesotans don't let their guard down till May. And I'm telling you, these folks that are out there on the streets, they're very skeptical, and rightfully so.
Here we go. Skeptical, and they're rightfully so. Oh, the nonviolence that we know Minnesota for, the nonviolent. Where, remember, just a day or so ago when they were smashing windows and trying to break into hotels and, setting things on fire, Minnesotan stuff. Radio crew, we're going to send you to the commercial. Come back in a minute. Going to continue on the live stream. No commercials here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, while they're off in FCC land, then Tim Walz, after, again, suggesting they're going to calm things down, then he gets out here to talk tough.
He's going to be all talking tough. He's going to say, that J.D. Vance, I'd have beat the S out of him. Big manly Tim Walz.
I would beat the shit out of him now if I could, and I would call that out. I mean, that's just different. In verbally going at it, my argument is much better. In making the case that housing prices are up because of immigration.
I'm sorry, beginning a statement by, I would totally beat the S out of Vice President J.D. Vance amid Mr. cooling down the rhetoric. Boy, he gets riled up easy when you mention that debate, doesn't he?
And that we should build on federal lands. It was such a crazy thing. But then when I watched him, I got sucked into that. And if you remember, this was right in that moment of eating dogs and cats. I took that bait and thought that was the argument of how outrageous it was. That was not the argument.
And he said that your cops are liars. He said that the ICE agents aren't.
They all did. That's exactly right. That this is the problem with them. And the president said it.
Yeah, the president is correct. Minnesota law enforcement has absolutely lied about working with federal law enforcement. That's just not true. You can say, well, we are honoring ICE detainers. We are following federal law. Again, when you have the mayor of Minneapolis openly admitting we have not, we are not, and we will not uphold federal law of any kind, it just doesn't work. He also then says, that Kristi Noem needs to go back to South Dakota, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. The White House released 4 points. They said, number 1, turn over all incarcerated or active warrant criminal illegal aliens for immediate deportation. I think we actually have this up. Here we go. Number 2, transfer all criminal illegal aliens arrested by state and local police. Number 3, assist federal authorities in detaining criminal illegal aliens wanted for crimes. This means keeping individuals who are obstructing law enforcement violently. We're going to talk about that with Alex Pretti here in a minute. You actually have to uphold the standard of safety in your communities. And number 4, Democrats must work with the federal government in the rapid removal of all criminal illegal aliens. It's that simple. End the chaos. That's what's been suggested. What you are seeing right now is Tim Walz and Jacob Frey doing absolutely none of it because they want the riots. They want the riots. When Tim Walz gets out there and says, they've showed up, and he gaslights and said everything was really just super duper peaceful. And I mean, there's not like there's all of this vandalism and destroying any car with an out of state license plate. Heavens forbid, that we actually point out that it's not peaceful and that they're perfectly comfortable with that. And then they encourage individuals to get out and obstruct law enforcement. So this brings us to the new details that we have on the shooting of VA ICU nurse Alex Pretti. He has been whitewashed immediately. And in the case of MS Now, they actually took a picture of him and touched it up because I guess he didn't look good enough. So they used AI to make him tanner and his face rounder, which is really bizarre. Imagine being what they consider a martyr, but you're not a good looking enough martyr to be a martyr. So they have to edit your photograph. A lot of just pathetic stuff people think that they're not going to get caught on. Now, according to CNN, a new report on Alex Pretti. So what you've been told before, as a quick reminder, before we bring the radio crew back in, you've been told that Alex Pretti was just standing out there, just protesting, legally observing, just directing traffic around. He's the hall monitor, and that ICE, they swooped in, a whole FBI van full of them, and they pushed him to the ground. They shoved him to the ground. They put him in an execution position. They shot him 47 times, and then they laughed. They said, "Hail Hitler," and then they just started spraying bullets around the street. And if they need AI photos to suggest that's what happened, then that's what they'll do. And again, immediately, so many people rushed out on the left and the right, rushed out to be judge, jury, executioner immediately. I know what happened. I saw 2 blurry videos, one before video, one after video. We're going to talk about that before video today. Bad decision. Now what are we finding? After just 24 hours of waiting for some of these particular details, 48 hours for some more of these details to come out, we are discovering that maybe certain individuals should have been a little more careful about getting ahead of their skis and running their mouth. So we're going to bring the radio crew back in from commercial. It's one of the things about having a show on a lot of platforms. We got to get everybody back in. We're going to walk through this new evidence, and not to mention some new Signal chat logs that looking pretty rough. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Don't y'all go anywhere.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. New information broken by all places, CNN. Here's Dana Bash revealing there's a little bit more on the Alex Pretti story about, again, not just a one-time showed up to protest situation. Here's Dana Bash.
CNN is learning that Alex Pretti had a physical encounter with federal agents about a week before he was shot and killed by law enforcement. Sources tell CNN that Pretti broke a rib when a group of federal officers tackled him while he was protesting. Priscilla Alvarez is breaking that story for us. What else are you hearing, Priscilla?
Dana, we're learning more details along with my colleague Jeff Winter about what exactly transpired a week before Alex Pretti was shot in Minneapolis and died this past weekend. Now, in this earlier incident, he stopped his car after observing ICE agents chasing what he described as a family on foot and began shouting and blowing his whistle.
There's the rape whistle. Good.
He later told one of these sources that 5 agents tackled him and one leaned on his back, appearing to leave him with a broken rib. According to this source, and I'm quoting here, that source said, quote, that day he thought he was going to die. Now, Pretti was later given medication that is consistent with treating a broken rib.
Okay, so then they're just giving kind of the ancillary details. We don't have the names on these sources yet. This is interesting and does in fact change everything. First of all, if you originally were tracking individuals, ICE agents around, and you were part of this network who's going around and is harassing ICE agents and obstructing, the idea that he was just standing there and, oh man, they tackled him and they broke his rib, I would be very shocked if we don't eventually find that particular footage. And he got a broken rib out of it. I'd say that's a pretty rough altercation. And then he learned nothing from obstructing federal law enforcement before. The Department of Homeland Security says that they don't have any immediate records like in front of them on this particular instance, but they're now reviewing all of the prior incidents over the last week to see if they can find this particular report. Now, as far as Alex Pretti is concerned, now him showing up with a loaded firearm changes things. Does that mean it was no longer his constitutional right? No. But now the question is to what he was doing as he was obstructing law enforcement, standing in the middle of the street. Now we get to some Signal chat logs. This is from the Oversight Project. Of course, we've had on their main man, Mike Howell, before. So Signal, the encrypted messaging service, had a number of groups operating on it, trying to track ICE. Some of these cooperated with Antifa openly. Some of them cooperated with local authorities to try to track, spot, dox ICE agents and operations in Metro. Now, what we have right now, I think we can pull this up on the screen. Here we go. Alex Pretti, who went by, at least in the Signal chat, by the username according to how his email addresses are laid out as Alvin Q, appeared to have been part of the organization that was attempting to alert people that ICE was about to target this particular street in which the coffee shop was recorded from. Now, how do we know that it's Alex Pretti? According to the Oversight Project, on his actual Signal profile in that group chat, although it lists his name, as not Alvin Q, but as Alex Pretti, it then lists a couple of other emails and profile details and things that are consistent with information that we know about him. He was communicating with an individual, one of the group leaders to say, named by Salacious B. Crumb, which is a Star Wars reference for no one's enjoyment there, saying that, confirmed ICE black Mazda midsize SUV southbound on Garfield at 28th Street, no eyes currently on the vehicle. You may recall that in the beginning of the video with Alex Pretti, the vehicle that he is standing in the street obstructing and beckoning closer to him is a black Mazda midsize SUV. Now, he says, I'm at the Friendship Coupe, moving west on 38th to spot, we'll update. Then he follows up by suggesting that ICE is showing up essentially near this donut shop where there are individuals who are illegal immigrants, criminal illegal immigrants, aliens that are in the building, where Alex then shows up. Now, also shared in the Signal chat is a piece of footage we've never seen before, or at least not seen yet. These are ICE agents, including one of the ones who is involved in the shooting of Alex Pretti, walking up to the door. As they walk up to the door, they lock the building, they shut it, and ICE moves on. This is from the same coffee shop, you can tell by the tan orange walls, that we get another piece of footage from in the small collection of footage from the shooting. Fast forward away. Again, this was in the Signal chat. This was sent. Like, we've reached him in time. We found them that Alex is in. One of the angles you'll recall is from the inside of the coffee shop view angle of the Border Patrol altercation in which Alex Pretti was shot, now reportedly by 2 federal law enforcement agents firing. So what we now know about Alex Pretti already, waiting just a few seconds, this is not just some random guy out there on the street standing there doing legal observer stuff. Nope. Targeted harassment, doxing, and obstruction repeatedly. Now, is that saying that he deserved to die? No, absolutely not. However, when you obstruct law enforcement, when you get in and violate federal law by getting between a federal officer and the individual that they are arresting, when you block traffic, there is this stupid idea, this lie that is told to countless people. You have a right to stand in the middle of the road and obstruct traffic as a protest, as some First Amendment rule. That is not true. And when individuals like Tim Walz or Jacob Fry, and we're going to get into the media side of things here in just a minute, when they encourage you to do these things, they are putting you at risk. They're not at risk. They don't care if you get shot. In fact, they'll use it as some type of a political stump speech for later. Now, this does unfortunately lead us to the escalation and encouragement into riots. So ABC News coverage, their reporter on the scene, did one of the worst exposés I think I've ever seen in the whitewashing of rioters. This is CNN's mostly peaceful fires of 2020 levels of coverage here. Check it out.
Another shooting involving the...
Not that one. That's the actual really horrible situation coverage here. Let me see if I can get you the other one here.
I mean, anger is absolutely the main emotion that we are seeing, George. They feel like they have a right to continue pushing back, and they feel like it is working. But especially they're upset because they feel like ICE has been everywhere. When I got to town, my team who had already been here said, don't rent a dark SUV. People will assume you are a federal agent because they're all over the place, and people will not be happy. You, of course, also have the immigrant communities. They are very afraid. There are people who haven't left their homes in weeks. And maybe, George, the most dominant emotion is dread. As long as the raids continue, the protests continue, and another shooting could happen at any moment.
That's a wild thing to say. You're a reporter on the scene. The prevailing thing is dread because these ICE Gestapo are coming in and they're storming in and the shootings could happen at any time. People need to rise up. My God.
Especially after Alex Pretti's shooting, more demonstrators could potentially bring their own weapons under the belief they have to be prepared to defend themselves from federal agents who could shoot them.
My God. My God. That is a horrifying thing to do. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, yeah, more people should bring weapons to protest. An ill-advised thing anyway. By the way, and as someone who carries, not as an illegal matter, but just as a common sense matter, when I'm out doing reporting, or when I'm at a protest, it's looking to get a little spicy, I leave the firearm somewhere else. It's not something to bring into that kind of a situation. That is, again, not a legal issue. That is a common sense issue. But we'll get to that in a bit. Radio Crew will swing you over to the commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's a very dangerous recipe. People are scared, but they're also resolute that they have to fight back.
People are scared, but resolute they have to fight back. ABC News. Now, again, they didn't stop. There was another ABC News clip that I started to play. They're now trying to push the narrative of a third shooting. A third shooting. So the third of these shootings, as again, you're going to hear the ABC News anchor say, the first is Renee Good in Minneapolis by ICE after she drove forward, did not get out of the vehicle and comply with federal law enforcement. After her wife encouraged her, drive, baby, drive, and either vehicular manslaughter or vehicular homicide. One of the two. And the second being Alex Pretti. Here's how ABC frames the third.
Another shooting involving the U.S. Border Patrol, this time in southern Arizona. That's
another shooting. So along the same line of shootings involving the U.S. Border Patrol, this time in Arizona.
According to the Pima County Sheriff's Department, that says the shooting happened early this morning. We don't know who was shot or the circumstances, but the Sheriff's Department says the patient was taken to the hospital and is in critical condition. We're going to continue to track it. We'll bring you more details as we get it.
Now, have they brought forward any more details since then? No. Nope, but they got that out right there. Oh, we have another shoot. Everyone turn your eyes to this. The Associated Press did the exact same kind of stuff. Again, very, very ill-advised to rush out right then at that very moment and proclaim now is the time that, you know, they're going to get out there and get this out. AP shooting involving Border Patrol leaves one in critical condition near the U.S.-Mexico border. Everyone starts freaking out on the social media spheres. And in the article, if you actually read it, quote, the shooting involved a Border Patrol agent and a suspect. A suspect. So this is someone they were actually going after, that they were looking for. The Pima County Sheriff's Department told the Arizona Daily Star. The area is a common path for drug smugglers and migrants who illegally cross the border, so agents regularly patrol there. Authorities released no information about what led to the shooting or anything about the suspect. But here's the link. This is how the author does it. Quote, the shooting comes, there's a typo because she can't write. The shooting comes in a month that has seen 3 shootings, 2 fatal, by immigration officers involved in the massive Department of Homeland Security enforcement operation in Minnesota. What it looks like in this case, they said a suspect that they were tracking along a drug smuggling route. Border Patrol involved in a shooting. Individual not even dead, rushed to the emergency room. Now, could this turn out to be someone out there having a picnic? I suppose all things are possible. But the way this is being currently reported is though, oh, they're at it again. It is wildly dishonest reporting. It has also been updated several times since it was published, which I also find to be rather dishonest at framing from Colleen Slevin. So this kind of nonsense, encouraging you to get out there, and city leaders are doing it too. Larry Krasner, district attorney in Philadelphia, we're going to hunt them all down.
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. That's what they are. In a country of 350 million, we outnumber them. If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, we will find your identities. We will find you. We will achieve justice.
And again, when you tell someone there is a Nazi, a Nazi, someone coming to kill you, if you expect them to respond in a manner that is not violent, you are lying to yourself or to them. And right now it's lying to them. We're going to swing over to how this affects the congressional side of things with Rob Bluey. Don't go anywhere. A lot of stuff in the show tonight. All of it worth watching. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast with special guest Rob Bluey.
You heard the music. It's time to go over to Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal, weathering this wonderful snowstorm and rapidly changing events in D.C. Rob, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Tony, and you're absolutely right. There's not many people actually working in the city, it seems, these days, as we're all snowed in. But Congress is coming back because they have a deadline of January 31st where they have to get the spending bill done.
So we talked about this a little bit earlier. Obviously, Mike Johnson's done a lot of work getting the 12 minibuses all the way through. Now we get to the Department of Homeland Security spending, and it's a rapidly evolving situation, right? You have the administration swapping people in and out. People are moving in and out of Minnesota. Walz is talking to Trump. Homan's out there in offices. And in the middle of all of this, Democrat leadership has decided now is the time to pick a shutdown fight.
Yeah, well, Tony, let me start where you started. I mean, first of all, just credit to Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who for the first time in, it seems like a generation, has actually been able to get these spending bills done through the regular appropriations process. Now, obviously, it wasn't done by that October 1st deadline, which is why we had the shutdown in the fourth quarter of last year.
Right.
But what they were able to do was to extend those until the end of January. And now you have a situation where you had Democrats, it was a bipartisan bill, I believe 7 Democrats in the House voted for this 6-bill minibus, as they call it. It appeared that the Senate was going to take it up this week, and they were going to be able to fund the government, and there wouldn't be a fight. Now, in the wake of the latest shooting death in Minneapolis, Chuck Schumer, as you indicated, has decided that this is going to be a fight that he wants to pick with Republicans and President Trump. And I ultimately don't know whether or not Schumer is going to be successful. We know that he wasn't successful in the last one. They maybe from a messaging standpoint, he injected the issue of healthcare into the midterm election campaign. But the Democrats never got what they wanted and what he had promised that they were holding out the votes for. And so you have a lot of Democrats who are in a position where they don't want to defund TSA and some of the other operations that will come with holding funding from this bill.
Yeah, I mean, that making it all the more tenuous for Democrats, in that now with Border Patrol being involved instead of ICE, it's a hugely convoluted matter and it's changing so quickly. The question that I have is that we've seen before when Democrats have launched these huge moves and they're going to change everything, they're going to shake it all up. By the end of the week, the story is likely to be completely different than at the beginning of the week. Meaning you have people like Adam Schiff that are signing on to say, I'm going to vote no, without any, I mean, it doesn't even look like John Fetterman. He says he isn't going to shut the government down over this, but it's a lot of stuff is in motion. It seems like a wild time to change direction.
Oh, it absolutely is. And just before I come back to the Senate, in the House, you have some of the Democrats who voted for this funding bill who are now coming out and saying that they regretted that decision. They're saying that they're signing on to the impeachment resolution against Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland.
Another thing to ask you about. My goodness.
So I think that part of it is trying to placate and political posturing to the left-wing base, which is just so opposed to Donald Trump and anything that he does, that they can't even stomach the idea that they would fund the government. Now, as it pertains to the Senate, you have a couple of things where Chuck Schumer and a handful of other Democrats who in the past have voted for these spending bills are now in a position where they have to decide whether or not, as you indicate, they're going to withhold the funding. If they decide to do that, yes, there would be ramifications not only for the Trump administration, because those agencies will not be able to operate as effectively as they would, obviously, if the government were open, but also they need to decide whether or not this is going to be a political winner or loser for them. Traditionally, the issues of border security and immigration enforcement have played to the favor of Republicans. One of the reasons why Schumer decided to shut down the government the first time was because he was able to elevate the issue of health care, which traditionally helps Democrats. And so I think there's a lot of questions that must be floating in Chuck Schumer's head right now, and big decisions that he has to make this week.
I mean, you would expect that in these kind of tumultuous times that you also wouldn't throw, again, impeachment proceedings on top of this. There's all of this. It's just like Washington, D.C. has decided it's really unhappy with the attention not being on Washington, D.C. And so it is then stepping forward to make a big circus case out of itself. Do you think that voters are going to get a little bit tired, maybe via some of the polling data, with the Congress higgledy-piggledy at the moment?
I absolutely do. And in fact, to contrast what's happening in Congress with what's happening between President Trump and Governor Walz in Minnesota, I think that typically voters like to see, even if you're a Republican or a Democrat, they typically like to see politicians cooperating. And as you pointed out, as our colleague Tyler O'Neill has pointed out, whenever you have a governor who is resisting the federal government's involvement in immigration enforcement, I mean, clearly Tim Walz doesn't know anything about the supremacy clause of the Constitution.
Right.
But I think he finally realized that returning the phone call to the White House, talking to Donald Trump, accepting the offer of sending Tom Homan to Minneapolis were good steps in a positive direction. I'm not sure that Washington Democrats are quite in the mood to act the same way. And so I think that this is one of the reasons why you have, when it comes to Congress's approval rating or the trust in the institution, it's right there down next to telemarketers when it comes to the polling.
So last question here, because we look at a lot of preemptive committees also getting excited in Congress with the situation rapidly changing in the Middle East. Obviously, with Venezuela, there have been some war powers resolution talks and some committee assignment decisions over in the House regarding holding the Clintons in contempt of Congress. What do you see as being the next big move out of the House and the Senate other than the funding fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once we get beyond the funding fight, I think it's incumbent upon the Republicans in both chambers to do two things. First of all, if you're in the House, you need to continue to try to codify all of the executive orders that President Trump put into place during his first year in office. Everything from domestic energy production to removing the woke ideology from our federal government. Those are important things to do, so the next president just can't come in and wipe those out. If you're in the Senate, you still have a pretty big backlog of political appointees, judges, and other confirmations you need to do. And so the Senate really needs to make sure that it's prioritizing that, because God forbid we lose, Republicans lose in November. You better believe that Democrats would bring that to a screeching halt, and Donald Trump is unlikely to get anybody through the Senate unless they get the approval of a handful of Democrats.
Very good points, as always. Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal, thanks for giving us a bit of an inside look at what is yet again another fantastic circus disaster.
Thanks, Tony.
Now, when we look at the actual reactions from the left who decided to put out statements even after we got a chance to sit down and look at the initial Alex Pretti situation again that is changing very, very, very quickly. Chuck Schumer in a last ditch. And I mean, you kind of feel bad for the guy, except he's just so darned unlikable. He gets out, I know he's got like a 0% approval rating. His own party hates him. He's decided that right now, no funding for the Department of Homeland Security. All of it. Okay.
In the meantime, I will vote no on any legislation that funds ICE until it is reined in and overhauled. And
by the way, they have no idea what they mean by reined in and overhauled. They've produced no actual measure. They just don't like that it was given funding.
Senate Democrats are overwhelmingly united on this issue.
Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you. That is not going to go the way that you think it is, mainly because there are, again, Democrats out there who are already sounding the alarm. It is unethical to shut the government down over this. It's not going to work.
I think that's a really good point to make, that they already have all the funding.
Sorry, that's Katie Tur on MS Now, not telling me that I made a very good point, but pitching it over to John Fetterman.
Funding that they would need. I guess the other side of it is if it is bundled, the leverage you have is not funding the military, not funding a few of those other agencies, and forcing Republicans to come to the table because they want those things funded. It allows you to negotiate some stricter requirements for ICE, stricter requirements for Border Patrol to send it back to the border, to make sure that ICE isn't needs a warrant to arrest someone or to go into a home, that they're not shooting and killing Americans on the street.
I love the framing of the question. I just do. You need to do these things. You need these leverages. Radio crew, we have to send you over to the commercial side of things. Fetterman bringing it over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Do you understand the leverage argument there?
I mean, the argument now that I think there's a rule. I don't think you should ever shut our government down, whatever the reason is. Like last year, and now they shut down and put our America through 45 days, and people really suffered, including SNAP, 42 million SNAP recipients. And now that we left with no health care. No, we really came away empty-handed. and now putting through that. So I think shutting our government down is fundamentally wrong. All of those changes are entirely appropriate for ICE. And then I said, I've called that they have to stand down and remove from Minneapolis, and Noam has to go. So for me, that's where we are.
Now, again, you can have that is a Democrat position to take. So he's trying very, very hard to thread the line between suggesting some kind of reforms. Again, very loose articulation, if anything at all, bringing up the border and sending people back, and then Katie Tur even laughing awkwardly because she has no idea what she's suggesting either. And bringing that forward. Again, they are thrilled at the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Pretti. They're thrilled because they get to use it as a talking point. Just like January 6th, they get to shove it in the face. There's nothing about that is substantive. There's nothing about that actually provides a different policy. They don't like federal immigration law being enforced. They want individuals here. When Virginia Democrats put forward a bill in their state government that call for any border patrol or immigration customs officials to be kept away a certain distance from voting locations, that's pretty freaking suspicious. That might be a little strange. Why would you suggest that immigration customs enforcement would need to stay away from a voting location? When you have such ardent arguments to encourage illegal immigration to continue, as again, Jacob Fry making it very clear, they're not going to change anything about their sanctuary city status. It's not going to play well as they think it is. It's a very ill-timed move. And in the beginning of the midterm year, a decision for sure. Now, on the impeachment desire side, because you have people like Hakeem Jeffries who now see the opportunity to do some impeachment trial shenanigans while they have the chance. He is so angry that in an interview today, he muted himself before he put on his angry eyes. So what you see right now is Hakeem talking. No sound is coming out of his face. He's muted himself.
We don't have sound. I think we're muted here.
Yes, good afternoon, Chris.
Good
Thank
afternoon.
you for having me on. Kristi Noem is a despicable, corrupt, pathological liar. We've seen her slander not just one, but two American citizens, patriotic Americans.
You can make the case that Kristi Noem should not immediately call anyone at the outset of an investigation a domestic terrorist, which is by the way, that is a correct criticism of Kristi Noem. While at the same time suggesting that just because Kristi Noem doesn't like someone or doesn't think someone is in the right, that doesn't automatically make them a patriotic American. The idea that if a radical Islamist terrorist does something, then immediately you need to get out there and say, actually, radical Islamists are really great. What's the problem with Sharia law anyway? Stupid move. But Hakeem.
Who were killed without justification on the streets of Minneapolis in the last few weeks. She's deeply unqualified. She never should have been confirmed to begin with by Senate Republicans. And House Democrats have called for her to be fired.
I like the exciting, motive there. We're going to bring the radio crew back one more time. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So Democrats have decided that what we're going to do right now, again, as I said when I was recording the trailer for the show, which we normally do around 5:15, 5:30 p.m., I said the situation is changing very quickly. When we recorded the interview with Rob Bluey, that was pre-recorded a little earlier today. When you have, we have a spot open for a video editor if you want to join the team. The link's in the description. But you have to record some things earlier on in the day. And in Rob Bluey's particular case, rapidly changing situation. And what did we have between then and now at 7:50 p.m. Eastern time? Well, you end up getting new details that may suggest you don't stake your entire reputation on this right here, right now, and immediately going to the highest extremes that you can find. Perfect examples of this would be Democratic Representative Jason Crow, who is so excited for some impeachment shenanigans. And then Republican Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina. So first, Representative Jason Crow on CNN.
Democrats in the minority in the House. You don't have the votes certainly on your side. Do you think there are Republicans who would join you to force the issue? How would it work?
Well, this is something I know an awful lot about, impeachment. I was a prosecutor in Donald Trump's first impeachment trial, so I have no hesitation to pursue accountability. And one of many tools that Congress has available to do that. I'm under no delusion also, and I'm certainly not holding my breath, that Republicans in the House are going to join with us to push for accountability. They've had plenty of time over the last year to do that. But I think it is important that we put a marker down and we let people know where we stand.
Okay, a couple of quick things here on this new strategy. So they're like, we're going to impeach Kristi Noem. All right. I know that over the last couple of years, it has seemed really tempting, exciting even, to get out there and suggest that anytime you don't like someone doing something, impeachment. And other than that, throw them in jail. Guys, people in government can do things that you don't like, that say things that you don't care for. Maybe you think they shouldn't have been appointed to that particular position. I seem to remember way back after the election in 24, saying that I had some concerns about Kristi Noem being the choice for Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. I suggested Tom Homan, I think, if I recall correctly. However, Kristi Noem getting out in front of the podium and saying things you don't like, getting ahead of her skis a little bit, that's not enough to impeach her. It's for crimes, misdemeanors, actual things that she has done that are considered illegal, unethical, unlawful to the point of impeachment. Just getting out there and just hitting the impeachment button again. Lizard. Again and again and again. Like, oh, impeachment, quick. You get the reason that Sri Thanedar of the weird wig and massive eyebrows of Michigan and
Representative Al Green and dastardly deeds undone
in Texas, the reason they're made fun of is because every other day they step out onto the floor of the House and it's
answer there, the Daily Double.
A double set of impeachment. Oh, we're going to impeach Donald Trump. We're going to impeach this person. It doesn't have any weight. You've done it too much. Now this is the strategy. Now, Tom Tillis in North Carolina, who's known for having about enough testosterone to fill perhaps a small infant. He's out here also suggesting he's really upset at Kristi Noem. Again, doesn't cite anything. He's just mad.
I think that what she's done in Minnesota should be disqualifying. She should be out of the job. And
what she has done in Minnesota, quoth Tom Tillis, is awful and she should be out of a job. What specific detailed actions has Kristi Noem taken? Specifically, be detailed here, outside of saying things that were uncouth. Despite saying things that, again, the New York Post has called her Barbie. I have also gotten a little close to that before. She's there are a couple people in the administration who seem to be more interested in the photo ops. But also, Kristi Noem and Kash Patel, though I don't like their comm strategy, they've done some pretty important stuff. The Department of Homeland Security and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have caught already 5 or 6 of the top 10 most wanted criminals in the first year. It took Biden to get 4 out of 10, all 4 years to do it in his administration with his team. Those are some accomplishments. What in Minnesota specifically has Kristi Noem ordered? You're going to get out here. You're going to get in front of the cameras. You're going to lean in with the blazer, the tweed blazer over the Patagonia vest. What in the a quarter zip underneath? Who's dressing this man? Sorry, I got distracted. What do you have as evidence? You're a senator. Certainly you have something. You want to be taken seriously.
I mean, really, it's just amateurish. It's terrible. It's making the president look bad on policies that he won on. He won on a strong message about immigration.
He did win on a strong message on immigration, absolutely. Suggesting that it is Kristi Noem to blame for the Trump administration's issues on immigration is ridiculous. I would say about 1/10 of it has to rest with how the DHS under her leadership has carried out some stuff. Now, 1/10 still sounds like a pretty reasonably large something to consider in a problem. Most of it has been due to blue states, which were given a year to get on the ball. They chose not to get on the ball. Instead of dealing with individuals who did not uphold federal law, instead of dealing with them quickly and with a quiet, consistent, mature manner, they let it fester. Now we are in this position. I'm sorry, it is the individuals encouraging the riots that are to blame for this. I have criticisms for Kristi Noem? Absolutely. Sure have. I thought that she was a party pick, a popularity pick for the cabinet. That doesn't mean she's done nothing good or that she's done something especially horrible in Minnesota.
And now nobody's talking about that. They're not talking about securing the border. They're talking about the incompetence of the leader of the Homeland Security and the other people. Bavino, whatever his name is, he needs to go back to California, get his retirement papers, and go. These people
going after Greg Bavino. I see what you're going for here, sort of. But the reason that you have such a high high disapproval rate compared to some other Republican senators is that you get out there and immediately, this reminds me of when I would have I was a middle school science teacher before I taught the high school A&P bio stuff. I had students that would get mad with each other on group projects that were going really okay, but in a high stress situation, they would just turn and lash out at their teammates, and it was really weird. This is the same thing. Why is no one talking about the border? Because it's shut, dude. I mean, well, the Associated Press is now drawing attention to the apprehension of what is very likely to be some kind of smuggler. It was the suspect anyway. The absolute fecklessness of some Republicans, it's not bewildering. It is very predictable and it's very sad. The need to be loved and respected by everyone, to be affirmed in the same way that someone kisses Rosa Dolores' hindquarters every morning. Yikes. All right, radio crew, we got to send you off to the wonderful wide world of commercial land at the end of broadcast. We're going to continue on the live stream. We haven't even talked about Cuba and the atomic scientists. Stick around. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Radio crew, see you tomorrow. By the way, I know there are some of you who are not particular fans of the in and out cutting with the radio crew stuff. We're working on that, but you got to do what you can. I do love our radio crew dearly, although they're not as hip and happening, as the kids say, in the live chats on Rumble and YouTube. You know, you got to treat them nice. Radio's still some good stuff. I don't have the golden microphone or anything, but hey. That stuff said, let's dive into some big international news, because now the President of the United States and his Department of State, through Marco Rubio, the man of 37 hats, the Emperor of Venezuela, the backup Pope, the next coach for the University of Miami football team. I mean, this guy, he can do anything at all. He might even be debuting an orchestra at the Kennedy Center. I don't know. You don't know. Got to replace Philip Bliss with somebody. So now his Department of State, according to an exclusive report over at Fox, looking at blockading Cuba. Oh boy.
So, Sandra, Trump administration officials are now considering potential options to push for regime change inside Cuba, much like they did in Venezuela. That includes the option to impose a naval blockade to completely choke off oil imports to the country. A State Department spokesperson here tells us, quote, Cuba is a failing nation. It is in our national security interests for Cuba, which is 90 miles away from our shores, to be competently run by a democratic government and to refuse to host our adversaries' military and intelligence services. Now, there is no naval blockade in place right now, but that's not stopping Beijing from chiming in to defend their communist comrades. They say, quote,
China calls for the immediate lifting of the blockade and sanctions on Cuba. We will continue to support and assist Cuba. First of all, the hilarity of China before even so in the first episode of Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, so like I guess the first of the prequels, all right, 99, in which the Trade Federation is mocked for having a really bad Asian accent. Now there are two of them. One of the reasons that entire plot started is because the individuals involved in the plot started whining about a blockade that hadn't even started yet. So essentially, China's now out here saying, hey, that blockade that you haven't started, you stop that right now and lift it immediately because you're starving and killing people is very sad. We're going to support and assist Cuba. Honey, you couldn't even keep your little outpost in Venezuela. There is currently what we believe to have been some form of attempted coup in the Chinese government in the last week. Several top Chinese military officials have been temporarily arrested, by which I mean gone, dead, erased from existence. I mean completely just gone. So things are a little rough in China as it is, which again, I've been predicting for quite some time. Things are not all great and golden in Beijing. Meanwhile, though, in Cuba, if the president of the United States and the United States Navy blockades Cuba and says, "You're not going to get to do your communist bullcrap anymore," I don't think that we can let America's worst adversaries, Russia, China, Luxembourg, Zimbabwe, buy oil from Cuba. I don't know. I don't think Luxembourg, buys oil from Cuba, but they've had it far too good for far too long over there. So that's the first big international news. Again, no blockade is currently in motion. Then the Trump team in Iowa this evening telling the crowd, maybe Iran, maybe they become, a has-been. I don't know. Armada sailing there. Here you go.
And in June, we obliterated Iran's nuclear capacity in Operation Midnight Hammer. You saw that. People have been waiting for 22 years to do that, and we were right at the end. They were about a month away from having a nuclear weapon. We had to do it.
And Tucker Carlson crying, very upset. World War III, you all heard about it. Didn't actually happen. Didn't happen at all.
And by the way, there's another beautiful armada floating beautifully toward Iran right now. So we'll see. I hope they make a deal. I hope they make a deal.
Same language we've heard before.
I hope they make a deal. I hope they make a deal. Hope they don't. I hope we don't have to shove a lot of missiles up their butts. And then I tweet out the American flag. It's a very nice flag. 250 years old. Who'd have thought?
Now, this upset one group more than anyone. The Atomic Science Board of Atomic Science. Now, you may say, Tony, what's the Atomic Board of Super Ultra Super Science Atomic Science? Well, this is the group that has the clock. A big clock. We're talking one they got from Big Lots. It's large. And the thing that they did during the Cold War is they said we're getting closer to multi-huge super nuclear war. Was going to wipe everything out. Was going to launch the Fallout series on Amazon Prime. We're all going to be radioactive, growing third arms out of our boobs, becoming AI ICE officers in Minneapolis, or so the photos would have you believe. So they created this like to midnight being the end of human civilization. We're just now 2 hours to midnight. Now 90 minutes to midnight, an hour to midnight. And then when Trump got into office, they're like, we're all going to die. And so they started doing like time zones of terror to the end. They have now announced for no reason whatsoever that we are just the most arbitrary numbers. I'll let them announce it for yourself. Big stuff, please. Hold on to the edge of your seats, ladies and gentlemen.
It is the determination of the Bulletin's Science and Security Board that humanity has not made sufficient progress on the existential risks that endanger us all.
It is according to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, Super Board's Defense and Science Ultra Board of Science. Humans have not progressed enough. What alien race are you a part of? These humans have not progressed enough to, take apart their nukes? There's a famous pirate broadcast in the UK in which someone from a different, quote unquote, like a different galaxy tried to communicate with Earth and announced that in order to enter the age of Aquarius, humans must get rid of their nuclear missiles. This is just Greta Thunberg, but with a little more academic grant money and without the accent. They're very upset that we haven't thrown all nukes in the recycling bin and then told Clippy to empty it.
We thus move the clock forward. The Doomsday Clock is a tool for communicating how close we are to destroying the world with technologies of our own making.
Technologies of our own making. Oh, so not just nukes anymore. Now technologies like AI bots? Are they about to say that like Tesla's got an army, a trade federation, a droid army? Maybe we're going to need a clone army to combat that. A lot of Star Wars jokes tonight.
The risks we face from nuclear weapons, climate change, and disruptive technologies are all growing.
Climate change? Oh no! Oh man! I mean, I'm told that the Arctic Ocean, which now has like more ice than it has in 10 years, it was going to be melted by now. Senator John Kerry, I have 14 Purple Hearts. That John Kerry, he promised me the Arctic Ocean is gone now. It's a sandals resort.
Second counts, and we are running out of time. It is a hard truth, but this is our reality.
So then she has Vanna Whitecoat behind her here. Essentially the guy who looks as though he's about to advertise Rockwell Automation's new retro encabulator. He reaches over to the artfully carved Lazy Susan display and fancy wedge sign to display the clock. They keep it next to the Ark of the Covenant. It's very, very top secret stuff. He gives it the old swivel, and it's not just a poster. They have had someone sculpt a really awkward Kleenex wedge out of their logo. And they also have a lady whose hair appears to have been modeled by a lawnmower. And I'm pretty sure that this other guy is a fired reporter from Axios. I'm not entirely sure. Who are also standing over there helping him spin. It's a two-person job. That's how monumental turning the clock is. It's not even a real clock. That's the rough part. I will describe this to those of you over on the audio only side. If you're not watching on the live stream, you're missing out. Not only because you could stare at me, but also because, behold, it's just a fourth of a clock. A fourth of a clock. And it's got 4 dots, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And they have created new text below it to announce it is 88 seconds to midnight.
It is now 85 seconds to midnight.
I'm sorry, 85 seconds. I thought it was 88. We've lost 3 of those seconds. Oh my God. Quick, somebody burn a hotel down in Minneapolis right now, or else we're never going to make it.
This is the closest the world has ever been to midnight.
Because they never moved the clock away. When the Soviet Union fell, actually, I'm curious about this. Hold on a second here. Producer Daniel, would you sketch a question here for me? When the Soviet Union fell, did they move the clock back from midnight? Because has the clock ever actually moved away from getting closer to midnight? I'm just curious about that. When one of the major nuclear powers fell and then the arms were secured and stabilized, surely you would move. The Cold War is over. We won. Hey, China's opened itself up, relations with the West, for better and worse. We're moving away from it, right? No, this is just a big sham. When someone tells you the experts and the nonprofit organizations are so important, these are the people that they're talking about. These goobers right here. Self-important. Their entire job. By the way, I'm just going to nitpick here for kicks and giggles. We'll zoom in with our hyper technology measures right here. That's not what 85 seconds to midnight looks like. The minute hand is not far enough over. You need to spend more time looking at more clocks. See, you can see the lady whose hair was styled by a lawnmower to the left of it. It was last moved back in 2010 during the Obama administration. That's exciting. That's exciting stuff. Amazing. We've come so far in our scientific institutions. You too someday can open up a number of very profitable institutions. A daycare in Minneapolis, a 1/4 of a clock academic center. Oh, they added 4 minutes with the fall of the Berlin Wall. 4 whole minutes. Wow. I'm excited. Yes, I am aware, as one of the comments says, hey, that's a minute 15 seconds behind 12 o'clock. That's very true. The minute hand still should not be that far over for it being 11:58:45. So, that all said, mere seconds away, as we all are most assuredly going to die any second now. Very, very exciting stuff. I do want to share with you the rest of the world who puts their trust in these individuals. Encouraging people to, if someone with a terminal illness, get out your sniper rifle and try a presidential assassination.
People going, you can't say that.
So her name is Morgan Morrow. Your friendly neighborhood librarian, because it's shocking how many of these individuals are librarians. She says, surely a sniper with a terminal illness can't be a big ask out of 343 million people.
Can. I did.
Stunning, brave, exciting. When the group that tells you that you are going to die imminent death preaches that endlessly, time and time and time and time again? I mean, it just so happens that people actually might follow through and suggest those kinds of things.
ICE just shot and killed a man in broad fucking daylight. Again. After savagely beating him 10-on-1, beating him, pistol whipping him, beating him with canisters, they executed him. And then just kept fucking shooting him. He was just laying there in the street, already fucking dead probably, and just kept shooting him. Nobody fucking wants ICE. Nobody wants a Gestapo, Fourth Reich, fucking Nazi goddamn government.
Again, I'm sorry about the saltiest of language, but it takes away if it's like an English rap song. And the words are just bleeped out so much that you start receiving messages in Morse code. And I don't have my ham radio turned on, so I really don't want to hear what the repeater station has to say about it.
They're going to keep killing us until we start doing the same back to them.
Oh, my goodness. Another call for violence. Gee whiz. And by the way, the individuals that they are defending, remember we had the discussion earlier last week about the man, remember the whole like children being arrested narrative that they have now thrown aside? Because here we go, now they have another shooting that they can talk about and throw out everywhere. The father who abandoned his child. Now we have yet another instance of an individual being detained and his family choosing to come with him. And then this guy, it looks like he just abandons his family. He books it. Screw them. I got to get away from the feds. There he goes.
Leave him alone.
Now, I always appreciate these particular things. I want to ask a question. Maybe you starred in a cops video in the 90s. I want to know, what do people expect to get out of this? I mean, Harrison Ford didn't even get away in The Fugitive until he was out of the irons. What do people expect? Is there like a guy on the corner with bolt cutters who's just chilling, vibing, waiting to cut people's handcuffs off? Where are you going with that? You really think you're going to outrun all of the feds doing the anime run that tried to break into Area 51? Really?
Leave him alone.
Then there's the white woman. Leave him alone. She doesn't know anything. She has no idea what's going on. Instagram or TikTok told her to show up. She's mad. She's very angry. She's got the grumps. And so, leave him alone. Let's see if they get him. Boom. Got him. Now, I couldn't help but notice there was no kindly neighborhood individual out there directing traffic. What a shame. What a missed opportunity. A couple other things to point out to you. The sale of TikTok now has some different algorithms dropping in that is not explicitly and exclusively owned by Beijing. And this has no one more upset than Bernie Sanders. So he tweeted out yesterday, thanks to Trump, right-wing billionaire, multi-billionaire Larry Ellison will now control the TikTok algorithm along with... And you're expecting him, Bernie Sanders, to then list like a bunch of other conservatives. Because he's mad about it. He's saying, oh, now TikTok is not being controlled by the communists in China. It's being controlled instead by Larry Ellison. And then CBS, MTV, the Free Press, BET, Black Entertainment Television. I don't know why they are so entertained. CMT, Simon & Schuster, Nickelodeon, Paramount Plus. I do not know what the plus means. Maybe the mountain in the logo got higher. Pluto TV. Is not even on Pluto. It's a complete ripoff and more. This is what oligarchy looks like. He's very, very upset. Now, I'm sorry. I'm just going to level with you. BET, Black Entertainment Television. Yes, known for their overt conservatism. Yes. Yes, MTV. Yeah, sure. Okay, Bernie. He's very, very upset. I really do enjoy watching socialists lose their ever-loving mind when a communist nation loses control over something. Womp womp. Big, big, sad crocodile tears for you. So excellent stuff. Just wonderful, wonderful information all over this evening. All right. So I do have a couple of mail time questions that I want to tackle for this evening. And then we're going to let you guys go. We're going to relax and have ourselves a wonderful evening. So For mail time stuff, you just throw a question over into the comments section, that kind of a place. I do want to thank a major, huge thank you to Greg MJ 2004, really kind super chat yesterday. Again, you guys do not have to give super chats. You don't have to give us any money. You don't have to do that. You're welcome to just hang out on the show. You don't need to get a super chat and donate money or join a channel membership to ask questions either. No, you don't have to do that to join the Discord. Those of you who do give, we're very grateful. That's very kind of you. Just putting that up front. Teresa Barrett, a very kind $5 super chat. Jeff D. USMC, a $17.76 super chat. He says, quote, "You get missed by 100% of the shots if you don't take yourself to the ice event in the first place. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott." So very, 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 very kind as well. Oh, yeah. Producer Jen is pointing out, yes, people can, if they want to, donate over on Rumble as well. Good. You don't have to do that. I'm just trying to kind of keep abreast of this and make sure that we get the thank yous out to everybody. Now, just a couple of questions here. So why has Alejandro Mayorkas, this is according to MSOZ2Woo, quite the username. Why has Alejandro Mayorkas, the last Secretary of Homeland Security, not been brought to justice? He is the one that supported the Mexican invasion. The best answer to that question is, again, that really stinky thing called the prosecutorial discretion. So I think that Alejandro Mayorkas should have been removed after his impeachment. There was evidence that he did violate the oath that he took. As to specific and individual crimes that he committed, it's going to be rather difficult to bring those about in the current climate. If the Trump administration came in and started cleaning house day one, you could have got some charges. You could have brought him in, and bring some charges. Those have a tendency, though, to get off the hook. As the example I've used quite a bit, when you charge Diddy with RICO, don't be surprised if it doesn't fit and he ends up getting away with much less. So the honest answer there is that it's just very unlikely that he wouldn't be able to say prosecutorial discretion and get away with it, even though he is a very, very awful individual. There is one person who very kindly from Whiskey Bent 1412 said, "I've been trying to get your name right, but Google wouldn't let me." I'm aware of this particular thing. Kinnett is spelled Kinnett. The extra T is for extra talent. This next one from Mike Nixon to the Daily Signal. Do some of these people commenting on Fidel Castro not realize that he has been dead for years? Sigh. Oh, such experts deserve a special place in chat. So yes, Fidel Castro did finally kick the bucket. He died in November of 2016. The guy who replaced him is an absolute no-name who was appointed by Castro. Again, no elections, God forbid that Cuba actually ever moderates anything like that. Really weird situation. The dude was old as it is, but according to an official autopsy on like the actual cause of death for Castro, he appears to have been failed by Cuba's magnificent, supposedly better than everyone else healthcare system. His brother, I believe, Raul, took over for him in 2008. And then in 2018, Miguel Diaz-Canel became the president and the Communist Party in chief then in 2020 or 2021, I believe. There's your answer to that. And as to the conspiracy theory question, I absolutely and wholeheartedly believe that Trudeau is likely to be Fidel Castro's bastard son. 100%. Without a doubt. Little bit there. All right, next question from Libertarian Dragon. He says, hey, how come the same folks who tried desperately to take all of our guns over the last few decades are now clamoring for the Second Amendment rights of Alex Pretti? So during the day, I'm a national correspondent. It is my job to, I don't want to say go up against, but go up in debate against certain individuals on various shows and platforms. And as the Daily Signal's correspondent, they often pair me with a guy over on the left side of things, and we hash out and argue some stuff. I'm actually about to upload a video over onto the Daily Signal's YouTube and Rumble this evening from my hit today, in which I got into a bit of a confrontation with Mike Leon over on the left side of things. Really great guy. Normally love getting to chat with him. The answer to your question as to why they are focused on the Second Amendment stuff, twofold. Number one, because they think they have conservatives in a gotcha, because you have people who are not Second Amendment hawks. Donald Trump's not a Second Amendment hawk. He's never pretended to be a Second Amendment hawk. He has people in his orbit who are Second Amendment hawks. President Trump is not one of them. He's a lot more moderate on a lot of things. And I don't agree with that, by the way. But I don't agree with a lot of stuff with President Trump, and still thrilled to have voted for him 3 times. So what are you going to do? As far as the reason they are bringing this out so fervently, they do, in fact, have no problem whipping out whatever harebrained logic they can at any time in order to argue the Machiavellian results of policy. We saw this during the pro-Palestinian, the anti-Israel protests and riots. We saw this, of course, in 2020. If people get out there and burn things down, even though that violates the law, even though that violates the First Amendment, violating the First Amendment, as we saw the people harassing the individuals in the Minneapolis City's church do. By the way, I have a colleague, Tyler O'Neill, who has done a phenomenal report on other things that those people like Don Lemon, like the former NAACP BLM leader that got into that church, things that they've done that's like way worse, like preventing parents from going upstairs and getting their kids out of Sunday school, which is, that's extra kinds of illegal. But even though that's a violation of the First Amendment, they don't actually know what the First Amendment is. Mike today, again, love him, good guy, but he argued from the left-wing position today that Alex Pretti was just performing his First Amendment right. No, you do not have a right to obstruct traffic, stand in the middle of the street, harass and obstruct and arrest in person in the face, attempting to either assault or obstruct or defer or delay an act of federal law enforcement being carried out. That's not a First Amendment right. By the way, the idea that you can just stand in the middle of the street and that's totally legal and fine, nope. You need a permit from a city or a locality jurisdiction to do that first. That's just the rules. But it doesn't matter, because an actual accurate definition of the First or Second Amendment, that doesn't matter. It's all Machiavellian to them. The end justifies the means. Whatever we have to do, if you have to burn down Minneapolis to get more attention on like police brutality or whatever, so be it. That was the argument then, and that is, the argument now. So that all said, I want to make sure we don't have any other particular... Oh, from Donna, make this the last question here. I want to know I want to know how people who go into Congress with normal bank accounts have millions after just a few months in. I'm really surprised I don't see more conservatives talking about this in an honest way. It's a lot easier as me as a media official to go, yeah, that's pretty weird, isn't it? That's very suspicious and strange, isn't it? Here's the secret. You want to know the secret? People who are running for office either were successful business people or have businesses of some sort before, or their spouses did or start one at about the time that their spouse runs for Congress, or family members do. And then individuals, whether they be lobbyists, whether they be interest groups. For example, Ilhan Omar's husband has a venture capital firm, which is incredible. I thought she was totally against venture capitalism, but her husband has one of those firms. People then throw in a bunch of money and investment into that because they think, hey, I'm going to get in really good with this congressperson. And is there an element of corruption in that? Absolutely. Now, can you make the argument that maybe there isn't anything technically illegal there? In the same way that, just to level with you, are there conservatives who that I look up to, that in the middle of really crazy stuff I might text for advice? Absolutely, I do. Yeah, you bet. 100%. There are instances in which I'll reach out to certain individuals via text because I know they're the best place to get some advice from. But in Congress, yeah, you have people who, have spouses or siblings, whatever. Obviously, a great example of this would be Joe Biden, and then used his son to influence peddle. And people would invest in Hunter because that's how you got access to Joe. That's how that works. That's that actual line delineated there for you. And then when your spouse is worth something, in a lot of financial calculations, that net worth estimation is counted for you. Not always. Many cases, though, and not always in the same way. There are different ways to calculate certain kinds of net worth, and I'm not going to get too much into that because then I start getting into the things that producer Daniel and his economics expertise usually takes precedent over. All right, that side all done. Really appreciate y'all. Think you guys are excellent. Thanks for tuning in. this lovely cold, frigid, one might say positively winteresque Tuesday evening. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. Same great time, same great place. Take care.
Since the founding of America 250 years ago, many things have changed. The homes in which we live, the clothes we wear, the jobs we hold, the conveniences we enjoy. But some things never change. The commitment of husband and wife, the importance of passing along our values to our children, the rewards of service to community and country, the faithfulness of God. Some wonder how America has thrived for so long and how we can ensure she continues to. As long as we keep first things first, we've only just begun. America, the beautiful.